after Bush, right? That we wouldn't be seen with a Republican for 5,000 years. Obama, the case is open and shut. Both of these parties, it's like Greece, right? You have the New Democracy and the PASOK, and they both support IMF austerity. The Republicans come at you with a chainsaw. Obama comes at you with the death of 1,000 cuts and slow poisoning. Dump them both. Dump them both practically and theoretically. In other words, look into your own mind and see all of the assumptions that Ron Paul was going to save you. He is not going to save you. Ron Paul is looking out for Ron and, above all, for little Rand. So we need an organizing alternative. If you don't have some organization, you are lost. These unions, you are right, in a depression, and with the ruling class mobilized in a fascist offensive, as we're going to see now this year, the unions cannot by themselves resist. They're going to be swept away, as they were in Wisconsin. We need some kind of
they're not swept away. They've been under control since the 50s, 100% by the globalists.
This is Governor Walker. Governor Walker, who is a relative of Bush, right? George Herbert Walker Bush and George Walker Bush. That's their relative, Governor Walker of Wisconsin. He is smashing those unions. Mitch Daniels is going to be on the ticket because he was the most successful union smasher. Governor Snyder in Michigan is sending in dictators to run Benton Harbor and Flint and Pontiac, Michigan.
Listen what you don't understand, Tarpley. I know you're an economist. Because of China and because the globalists won't let us have any tariffs, and so it's not free or fair trade because they got slave labor, they've got hidden tariffs. It's a joke. It's deindustrialized us. There really can't be any unions anymore because there's no industry left to speak for. So that's why it's all totally. And then Obama takes $20+ billion in taxpayer money to pay to ship Cadillac and Volt factories to China. I mean, a foreign army couldn't do that.
So join me in campaigning for a protective tariff. That's what I'm for. I'm for mercantilism, protectionism, and dirigism. That's what de Gaulle stood for.
Yeah, explain why they didn't like de Gaulle. That's important.
Because de Gaulle said, I am going to use the powers of government to modernize the French economy, raise the standard of living, go towards full employment. This is why France has the best railway system in Europe, right? The TGV. It has the best nuclear energy industry. It has the best aeronautics, right, with the Concorde and the Airbus and all the rest of it. France, you go back to, right after World War II, France had no aeronautics industry worth mentioning. Now they are a world leader thanks to Airbus. They can launch satellites.
I mean, de Gaulle actually had to kick NATO out. He had to grab their nukes. There was actually some military. There were actually some military standoffs. People don't know about that. Sarkozy brought France back into NATO. Give people some of the backstory on that.
Oh, there were 35 attempts by NATO intelligence to murder de Gaulle, to assassinate him, and it was using Vichy fascists, people left over from the Nazi occupation government. So de Gaulle came on the scene with a coup d'etat in 57, 58, and this was a strong state. I think people make a tremendous mistake. If you think the American state today is strong, you're wrong. We have a weak state. We have a state that's pushed around by J.P. Morgan Chase, by Exxon Mobil, by Halliburton.
Look at the credit agencies run by the foreign banks who have governments begging at their knees to them.
And imagine the United States government trembles in front of Standard & Poor's. De Gaulle knew what to do. De Gaulle would have sent tanks to the headquarters of Standard & Poor's. He would have rounded up a bunch of Wall Street financiers and put them in the clink. He did, in fact. There was one point where Monaco, right, the Duchy of Monaco, was trying to become a tax haven so French millionaire, billionaire fat cats could go there and not pay taxes. De Gaulle encircled Monaco with troops and tanks, and that was the end of the neo-feudalist experiment. That's what we're fighting for. The enemy is neo-feudalism. Peter Thiel is a great example of neo-feudalism. Let's build islands where we can have slavery, prostitution, narcotics.
Well, no, but what they do is they bring big government tyranny here, then they build little fiefdoms where they're safe from what they did.
Now at DeseretFoodStore.com.
All right, Webster Tarpley is our guest. We covered a lot of news so far and took a lot of calls. We're going to go a little bit into overdrive into the next hour with Webster. All I know is that I try to study politics and history constantly, and it is complex, and the system knows that. You talk about the general public, they have no idea what's going on. So we have a very big government, but he's right. It's not strong. In fact, they're getting it where foreign corporations, banks come in and boss the government. Blackwater, during Katrina, came into the mayor's office and said, we're in command. Now, they sent federal troops in to confiscate guns. And that's what these neo-feudalistic globalists set up. And that's what they want. They want a post-industrial world. This is their statement. But they're using Agenda 21, total government regulation on the little guy, to shut us down, while they, the globalists, give themselves a libertarian offshore system to be above it. So it's not, Webster, that they're really libertarians. It's that they want a selective libertarian system for themselves, while total post-industrial, neo-feudalistic Hunger Games, serfdom under an environmental dictatorship for us. I mean, certainly there's the big government model they're using selectively. I mean, what do you say to that dichotomy that they are synthesizing that I just mentioned?
Well, it reminds me of what people used to say about the Soviets, right? Saying, well, this is not real Marxism, right? The real existing communism in these places is somehow not the pure doctrine. It never was. It never will be. These neo-feudalists are actually acting out. They're implementing the essence of libertarianism, which is precisely that you go into living hell and they go into some paradise, whether it's in Aspen or offshore or in Switzerland, whatever it is. In other words, it is the war of the 1% against the 99%, but it's that war being conducted with the 99% drugged, stupefied, incapable of understanding their own interests. I would say we have to be, first of all, students of what's going on in the world, right? Look at Greece. The Syriza bloc with Alexis Tsipras, they are going to be fighting this coming Sunday, June 17th. They have already passed the equivalent of the Republican and the Democratic Party. The two major parties in Greece are collapsing thanks to this Syriza bloc. Let's learn from them. What's their program, right? No austerity, no attacks on unions, social justice, put the bankers in jail, and a debt moratorium, right? If you have too much debt in a country like this, then you're going to have to postpone the payments, right? Freeze it for a while. They've gone from 4% to 30%, and they may become the next government. That's the most inspiring thing I can see. We need to learn from those examples. Look at what succeeds, what fails. Paulism has failed. Syriza is succeeding. The Wisconsin method has also failed. Don't let the Democratic Party come in and take your mass struggle and turn it into a political campaign with consultants and TV ads for one of their hacks. That's why I say National Emergency Anti-Austerity Conference sometime in August. When the Supreme Court comes down with their opinion on Obamacare, this will be from the rats cabal, Roberts, Alito, Thomas, Scalia. And they were probably going to say Obamacare is unconstitutional. And by the way, the American people have no economic rights. We're stripping you of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and everything else. We're going to leave you nothing but your eyes to cry with. We are going to flay you alive. Who can fight back against that? The unions, as you're correctly saying, can't, because they are slaves to Obama. The Pauls will be joining in. They'll be cheerleading. They'll say, yeah, flay them alive, flay them alive. This is our predicament. We've got to have some form of national self-defense to assert the interests of the vast majority of the population. And 75% of Americans want their Medicare, their Social Security, and their Medicaid. They don't want to be flayed alive.
But that's the trap. They get you addicted to the government. Then, like a crack dealer, they start taking it away.
I think that's
well, hold on. Oh, we got breaks are there. We have to do those. All right, listen. Coming up, we're going to have a ton of news, breakdown of information on what's happening in our world as all these bureaucracies and private corporate interests come in and basically take over government and weaponize government against the people. Webster, I get that you can have government that directs development. The problem is this is a global eugenics corporate government that exempts itself from its own rules. They're weaponizing government at every level against us to spy and surveil and electroshock us to death. And it's all going to hell in a handbasket. And they're launching all these new proxy wars using al-Qaeda to attack Syria and take over Libya. And then I'm not patriotic if I don't support al-Qaeda. You've been to Syria. We're out of time. I'll have you back soon. But briefly, give us your take on the admissions that they're using al-Qaeda against Syria right now.
Well, nothing new, right? Al-Qaeda is the CIA Arab Legion, and they're the ground troops. But just to return to your last point, the answer is not to take people's food stamps away. You want a recovery? Here it is in a nutshell. Seize the Federal Reserve. You can do it with a phone call. A real president could call up and say, Bernanke, here's what you're going to do. You're going to issue $1 trillion of credit stimulus, 0%, 100 years. And you are going to give the states, you're going to buy bonds from the states.
And the bankers get that. We the people don't, though.
And they're going to give it to private contractors. We're going to rebuild the interstates, the railways, the energy systems, the canals, the waterways, schools, hospitals, public buildings. We're going to have a space program again. That can all be financed through federal lending, not federal spending, federal lending. The Fed can manufacture money out of the air. Right now, they do it at 0% for zombie bankers and hedge fund hyenas only. We say, stop that. We want 0% for productive activities. And that goes down to the restaurant, the dry cleaner, the auto repair shop. Those are productive. They shouldn't have to pay sky-high interest rates. They should be close to zero. And then you get a recovery. So having a recovery is easy. Seize the Fed. Don't destroy it. We want that credit-creating power, job creation, national infrastructure. We could show the world how you defeat a depression in a single day. We could do it. So there's no reason to be pessimistic. There's every reason to be optimistic.
No, listen,
the American system is optimistic.
Sure, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. The issue is that's not the direction we're going in.
We need a mass movement. We need to change the direction. In Greece, Greece was being destroyed. People were committing suicide. Syriza came forward and said, we're here to fight. Let's fight. Let's not be so damn worried about what the enemy is doing. Let's worry about what we're going to do. And we need independent organization. We've seen the tragedy. If you go into an organization that's controlled by finance capital through the Pauls or through this guy Barrett in Wisconsin or whatever it is, you lose. Independent organization, not controlled by Wall Street or the Koch brothers or Soros or any of their stooges.
Well, we're living in incredible times because the corporate welfare people are imploding things by design. They're taking over Europe. They're militarizing against us. And undoubtedly, they have a plan to take over. We have to develop a plan.
So we need a plan and an organization to back it up. And that's what it is. Without organization, you're nowhere. You can't have enough guns. I'm sorry. You can't have enough survival stocks. It's pathetic. You've got to have organization. That's where power resides. A political organization. Again, Syriza from 4% to 30%. Why can't we do that here? We could do it rather easily. But people have got to get on board. Forget the Pauls. Forget
we're out of time. Give us your leprechaun imitation.
And remember that Ron Paul was talking fetishism, alienation, magical thinking, right? Me gold, me gold. That was his program, right? He thinks that gold has magical powers. No. Gold represents really the productive power of humanity projected onto a metal. The value of a currency is what can you buy with it.
What about Lep in the Hood? What about Lep in the Hood?
Yeah, Lep in the Hood, out to do no good. That's Ron Paul. Lep in the Hood, out to do no good. So that's the Leprechaun series. I trust I'll be getting a check from them.
Here's something else. Tarpley, thank you for spending time with us.
Okay,
another perspective from Tarpley. Okay.